It's one of my favorite games, and today we're going to take a look and see which version is best on two of my favorite systems too. Don't go anywhere. Hey everybody, it's me, Scott Galaxy. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of The Layman Video Gamer. Today we're talking about one of those games that kind of really made me a fan of this particular genre. And today I'm talking about shmups. And Lords of Thunder is one of my favorite shmups of all time. And it came out on one of my favorite systems, the SEGA CD. That's where I was first introduced to it. Now, it did come out prior to the SEGA CD release on the TurboGrafx-CD, which is also one of my favorite systems / add-ons that I own. And there's always been like a lot of talk about which version is better, the SEGA CD version or the TurboGrafx-CD version. And again, I'm partial to the SEGA CD version because that's the one I was introduced to it. The soundtrack is amazing. It's an awesome shmup. And it's one of those games that isn't like extremely hard, but it's, you know, it's challenging enough to where you're like, all right, this is worth playing. And it's got some of the most epic cutscenes, intros you're ever going to see for a video game. So I thought today we'd do something fun and finally get a verdict on this. Which version of Lords of Thunder is better, the SEGA CD version or the TurboGrafx-CD version? So we're going to take a look at both today, and we'll start with the SEGA CD version, my beloved. Let's take a look and see what the game is all about, and then we'll compare with the TurboGrafx-CD right after that.
May I help you? Thank you.
I mean, you cannot tell me that does not get you pumped up. So of course this is Lords of Thunder, like I said, for the SEGA CD. This is an epic game. In fact, if you want to check out my top 10 SEGA CD game video, you can certainly see where I put this in my top 10 because it did land there. So check it out. And I don't want to bore you with all the details about what this game is about, but I'll give you some cliff notes just so you know what's going on. So you are the knight Landis, and you can choose between 4 different armors that are based off of the classic elements like earth, wind, water, and fire. And your goal is to basically defeat a boss in 6 different areas, at which time a last final area gets unlocked. You go there, you defeat the evil god Dioric, and you win the game. Bada bing, bada boom. So right off the bat, you can tell it's the music steals the show. It's an incredible soundtrack, and you'll find that in both games really, but the gameplay is tight. It also has an element where you can go and buy particular items such as bombs and extra weapons, extra life, continues, so that's kind of neat. You can do that, but it's based on all the gems, so you'll see all the gems flying around on the screen. It's important to pick those up because you're going to use that money to buy special items for either when you die or when you get to the next stage. So very important that you pick up as many of those as you can. That being said, the graphics are spectacular. Yes, it's a typical 16-bit game with an awesome soundtrack, but the graphics are really nice. I mean, it's really well done. It doesn't really push the SEGA CD limits by any means other than adding CD quality audio to it, but it's still a fun game that I go back to almost on a regular basis. If I need to get my fix for a good shoot 'em up, this is the game I go to. And if you do pick up this game, it is a fairly I don't want to say that it's an easy game, but it is going to be a game that's challenging enough to where it's worth the play, but it's not so easy that it's boring. You know what I mean? So this to me is a perfect balance of challenge and being able to really commit and say, I'm gonna beat this today. So it's not like something that's gonna take you a long time to do, but you're gonna have a lot of fun doing it, trust me. So that is the Sega CD version. Let's check out TurboGrafx-CD's version of Lords of Thunder and see how that compares to the Sega CD version. So like I said, this is the TurboGrafx-CD version. As you can see, it rocks just as hard as the Sega CD version. Awesome music, wonderful soundtrack, and really the only difference, and I didn't play the intro that the Sega CD version has, but really the biggest difference when you pop both of these in for the first time is that intro where the Sega CD version has more voiceover work, tells the story, whereas the TurboGrafx-CD does not really go into it. So as you can see, they look pretty much the same. They're very much the same game. So really it's going to come down to the controls. I mean, for me, the controls on both are great. The one thing that maybe TurboGrafx-CD could have had as an advantage was the ability to have the turbo buttons, but you can just hold down the button on the Sega Genesis version. So it's really just a preference of what do you like. Do you like the Sega Genesis controller better, or do you like the TurboGrafx controller better? It's really up to you, but for the most part, they're both basically the same. But let's put them side by side and see what they look like. Please keep in mind also that the TurboGrafx-CD version is going through a RetroTink 2X, whereas the Sega CD is going through an RGB SCART to HDMI converter. So the reason they look different is essentially just because of the converter that they're going through. So the graphics look pretty much the same. So I know I've already talked a lot about the music, but to me that's really the thing that stands out between the two when you put these side by side, is that the Sega CD version, the audio balancing feels a little bit different than the TurboGrafx. The TurboGrafx-CD version feels a little bit more music driven, whereas it feels like the balance for the Sega CD version is more for the sound effects, which is fine. Either way is fine with me, but it does feel like they changed the balancing a little bit. But both sound great. So really the bottom line, I think, in order to figure out which version is better, which is impossible to do, by the way, but if I were to choose which one was better, I would probably go with the TurboGrafx-CD only because the music seems to be the bigger part of the game than the Sega CD version. And I love the Sega CD version. It still rocks. It's still awesome. But I feel like just when I'm playing the TurboGrafx-CD version, that music is just, man, that drives me. That is, I mean, I feel like a Lord of Thunder. But the Sega CD version has a hand up in just the extra features, like the extra voiceover work that was done. But that being said, they're both amazing games. And, you know, for me, it's kind of a toss-up, but if I had to be, like if I was forced to pick one, I'd probably say the TurboGrafx-CD is the better version. So there you have it. That's Lords of Thunder for Sega CD and TurboGrafx-CD. Like I said, they're both very comparable. You'll be happy with either one of them. Price-wise, you're going to pay about the same in today's market. I think the Sega CD actually may cost a little bit more, just a little bit. But either way, you're going to spend a lot of money to play these games. If you want the actual hard copy, for me, I'm all about the hardware. So between these two, like I said, if push came to shove, I'd probably go ahead and pick the TurboGrafx-CD version as the better version, but I'm not being pushed or shoved or being forced to make a decision. So I'm still in love with the Sega CD version. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than I would love to hear from you and your thoughts on Lords of Thunder. Which version's better in your mind? Please leave a comment and I'll get back to you. I promise you I will respond to just about every comment I get. And if you like what you watched today, please feel free to look at other videos that I've done and subscribe before you go so you're notified of every new video that comes out, just like this one. And I've got some big ones coming up the pipeline here. So I'm really excited about 2024. This is the first video of 2024 that I've done. And I'm really excited, guys. I'm really excited. And I'm almost at that 1,000 subscriber mark. So any help, that would be great. So anyway, that's my show for today. Again, leave me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. And until next time, I'm Scott Galaxy. And this has been The Layman Video Gamer.